welcome back to the United Stand. It is the afternoon show as Rasmus Højlund's exit moves closer. Could it be likely that he leaves Manchester United this summer with Inter Milan? Apparently Inzaghi is 100% sold on Rasmus Højlund, but should Manchester United let him go for a loan, or should we push for a permanent sale, as Italy is the place where Rasmus Højlund is attracting a lot of interest? Mbeumo below looks like he could be going to Newcastle. How could that be affected by their sporting director Paul Mitchell having just announced his exit as well? But Mbeumo, we're waiting for players to leave. He could go to Newcastle. Also Cherki looking likely to go to Manchester City as well. Another player that a lot of people would want as that extra number 10 for Manchester United. This is what happens when you don't have the money from the Champions League. You're waiting for sales, and as you're waiting for sales, your top targets move to other clubs. That's what happens when the players that you're interested in are very good players. Other top clubs are going to be interested in as well, and if they've got the money there to go and do that deal, it's unlikely that by the time Manchester United have done their exits, that them players are still going to be waiting around for a 15th place Manchester United side. But we'll get onto that, we'll talk about it. I've not been on the show for a couple of days, so I want to have my say on the Mbeumo stuff. Anybody who watches my 2PMs will know how much I want Mbeumo and how much I would love him at Manchester United. We're going to talk about Rasmus Højlund. Should we push for a sale? Would you rather keep him than it be a loan, or do you think he needs a loan? Get your comments in. Oh, and I forgot to say as well, big update on Liam Delap. Chelsea playing in the Conference League final. Is this why his decision hasn't been announced yet? To avoid distractions. As more reports come out, he's looking more likely to join Chelsea. What's happening to Manchester United? Blows left, right and centre. I was absolutely loving it. Signed Cunha, here we go. Yesterday I'm thinking Mbeumo is coming to United. Mbeumo, however you want to say it. I think it is Mbeumo. Mbeumo's coming to Manchester United. I'm thinking, happy days. Next season, okay, yeah, Liam Delap isn't my number one striker target, but a front three of Delap, Cunha and Mbeumo, I'm loving it. I'm living the dream. You know, it's way better than what we've had this season. Today I wake up, I look at the news. Looks like Mbeumo's off to Newcastle. Looks like Cherki's off to Manchester City. It looks like Delap's going to choose Chelsea. I'm thinking, what's going on? I mean, Cunha's good, but he's not going to solve every single one of our problems. I'm boasting about Cunha, but we need more. We have to do more. And then with Ruben Amorim as well, in his press conference over in Kuala Lumpur, I think they are right now, he's talking about how it's very difficult for us to do anything, and I'm thinking we need to do a lot to catch up to the teams above us, especially if the teams above us that have got Champions League football or have got European football are also strengthening. They're already stronger than us, and they're going to be strengthening even further with players we potentially want but can't afford to get. So it's one of them where we really do have to move into this transfer window with a strategy. And I'm excited to see what Omar Brada says if he does speak out on the post-season tour that they're on, that Ruben Amorim hinted he will do. But anyway, let's get straight into it. Rasmus Højlund. I'm going to run a poll straight away and get voting in there. I want to make it interactive. Get involved in the poll. Rasmus Højlund, would you let him go on loan, sale or keep? Which one would you prefer? Sell, loan or keep? Because at the moment, the exit strategy we're hearing is all about a loan. Clubs in Italy want a loan. Well, I think Manchester United should be demanding a sale for Rasmus Højlund if he is going to go, and I'll tell you why in a second. But this is the report coming out. There is a total approval at Inter about a move for Rasmus Højlund. Inzaghi is a fan of his profile, and the ownership is convinced about his abilities despite his struggles at the moment. His wage demands of around €4 million would be within reach of Inter Milan, who would be keen to land the striker on an initial loan plus an option to buy. Now, Manchester United have been stung by loan and options to buy before, i.e. Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho, who both look like they'll be returning to Manchester United this summer. Yes, we expect them both to leave on permanent sales, but when you do a loan option to buy, there's so many different elements, and usually it doesn't end up going to plan with the club triggering the buy option. Usually the player ends up coming back and then you've got to negotiate a different fee for them to be sold. And an option to buy, obviously it's nice to have, but it's never usually triggered. Did we have an option to buy with Amrabat and Sabitzer? I can't remember if we did, but if we did, we never triggered them, did we? A lot of the time when there's an option to buy involved, it doesn't really end up ever happening because the fee isn't agreed. And, you know, to be fair, if Anthony would have had an option to buy, I reckon Real Betis would have been all over it, but it just completely depends on the circumstances. So option to buy, you can kind of scrap. If he goes, it would be a loan spell. Would you be up for that? Now, honestly, hearing it, I have some thoughts, and get your thoughts in down below. It's not the first time we've heard that Rasmus Højlund is attracting a lot of interest from Italy. He obviously did very well for Atalanta, and we paid a lot of money for him just off that spell. And we have been ridiculed, we've been bantered as if you paid over 70 million euros for a striker that had scored, was it 8 or 9 goals for Atalanta in half a season? Why did you take such a risk and pay that much money on this player? Well, at the time, you know, PSG were in the race for him. We were battling hard with PSG, and Rasmus chose to come to Manchester United because he's a Manchester United fan. But PSG were right there in the race. Fabrizio Romano at the time was coming on interviews with the United Stand saying he's got so many fans in Italy. Like, there's so many people in Italy that really rate this striker, Rasmus Højlund, and think he's going to be one of the next best strikers. Young player, and everyone was hyped about him, thinking this is going to be one of the next best strikers. Young, doing really well for Atalanta, who have had great talents come up through their not only their academy, but through the ranks before, when they've gone and bought players like they did with Rasmus and brought him in and kind of nurtured him. So everyone thought that he's going to be brilliant. He's come to Manchester United. First season, not great, but had some really good spells where you thought there's potential. This season, he looks like he's regressed, and it just looks like there's nothing there with Rasmus Højlund right now. He looks like he's struggling in the Championship. You look across the Premier League, you struggle to find a Premier League team that he'd start for. That's how far he's gone backwards. So Rasmus Højlund did have all this potential, did have all these fans, and a lot of people did think he was going to go and smash it in Manchester United. It's not happened. He started off a little bit shaky, you know, we needed to bed in, kind of warmed up, looked like he was going to hit the ground running this season, and he's just gone backwards and doesn't look anywhere near a Premier League level striker. So for Manchester United to still have a door open for clubs to be interested in Rasmus Højlund, a big part of that will be because of his wage. His wage isn't too high at all. So these Italian clubs can afford his wage and can afford the financial package it would cost to have him on the wage books and to get him into the club. So why do we not push for a sale? I think Manchester United should be pushing for a sale on this one. I understand his book value is pretty high because of the amount we paid for him and how long he's been here. I think for Manchester United to break even on his book value, it's around 40 to 42 million that we'd need for him. It is quite high, but I do think Manchester United should be pushing for a sale. The one thing that rings a little bit of alarm bells in my brain when I think about it is Inzaghi is no mug of a manager, right? And this report reads that there is total approval at Inter about a move for Rasmus Højlund. Inzaghi is a fan of his profile, and the ownership is convinced about his abilities despite his struggles at the moment. Inzaghi has got Inter Milan to 2 of their last 3 Champions League finals, if I'm not mistaken. Inter Milan are going to play a Champions League final against PSG. They were competing right until the end for Serie A, until McTominay, went and won it for Napoli. He is a top manager. Their system does suit him, and we've seen strikers who have maybe had a bit of criticism in the Premier League go into Serie A and do really well. But Inzaghi is a top manager, and if he rates Rasmus Højlund, you do have to start to ask yourself, is there something there that we're missing out on? Like, will Rasmus Højlund be one of them players like the McTominays, the Anthony Elangas, the Anthonys, the players that leave Manchester United and go on to do really well? Even Lukaku, right? A lot of people complain about Lukaku when he's at Manchester United, and Ricky will love this. He is about to play another Champions League final with Inter. Sorry, not Inter. He's played a Champions League final with Inter. He's just won the league with Conte and McTominay at Napoli. So these players that leave Manchester United go on and do really well while Manchester United is still struggling. Is Rasmus Højlund going to be another one of them? If there is still fans of him out there in Italy, or is it an example like what's happened with Anthony at Real Betis, where certain players are just not suited to the Premier League and cannot handle the Premier League? If you think about Rasmus, where's the competition where he's thrived the most? Since he joined Manchester United, he did excellently well in the Champions League group stages last season under Erik ten Hag, when Onana cost us in the Champions League stages. I think he was top goal scorer in the groups when we were in the group with Copenhagen, Bayern Munich, Galatasaray. And then this season, his most joy came in the Europa League. He tends to do better against the European sides. Even though the Champions League is a very prestigious competition, I mean, Spurs and United were in the final for the Europa League, so that one might not have as many good teams in it, but he does seem to do better in the European competitions. Maybe he's just not suited to the Premier League, similar to Anthony. You know, Anthony was doing really well at Ajax, came to United. Okay, there was a lot of disruptions. He obviously had the off-the-field issues. Fell out of favour with the manager. I think the media wrote him off as soon as he did that spin. I remember he got absolutely hammered for that. We don't, in England, a lot of the time, media are so on foreign players' backs for any sort of expression within their football, unless they're an English player like a Jack Grealish or a Morgan Gibbs-White. If you're going to express yourself as a foreign player coming in, sometimes you can get on the backs massively. And Anthony did have them issues that probably hindered him, but he did have opportunity in England, and he's not looked anywhere near like what he's done out there in La Liga for Real Betis. And again, La Liga's a good league. Like, you've got the Real Madrid, you've got the Barcelona, you've got Atletico Madrid. It's a good, solid league, La Liga. And Anthony's been one of the best players in La Liga. It's well known that he's been one of the best players in La Liga since he's come into Real Betis. So some players just are not suited to the Premier League, can't hack it in Manchester United, but can still do well elsewhere. And is Rasmus Højlund one of them? Get in the comments down below what you think, and get voting in the poll. What would you do if Højlund? Sell, loan or keep? We've got some super chats already coming into the room, so thank you very much for that. Rob Always United says, you look very nice today, Beth. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Killin2167 says, if we can get Gyökeres, for example, I'd like to give Højlund a season where he can work with / learn off a more experienced striker, not being the main guy. Killen, we're not getting Gyökeres. Everyone, let me just bring you back down to earth. We're not getting Gyökeres. We're not. I've come to that conclusion. I am usually glass half full. Some people have called me delusional before. We're not getting Gyökeres. I think the best we can hope for is Delap right now. I think Plenty Goal reported that Gyökeres is almost off the table. Romano's not given an update about Gyökeres for a long time now. All of the talk is about Manchester United trying to win this race with Chelsea for Delap. I think as soon as we bowed out of Champions League football, the Gyökeres race was over. I do genuinely believe if we won the Europa League and had Champions League football, we would have had a crack at getting Gyökeres, and we could have gone and done it. I think Amorim was very, very clever when he said in that press conference the first time round in the semi-final against Athletic Club that we want players that want to join Manchester United, not to join for the Champions League. I think he knew. Don't get it twisted what I'm saying. He wanted Gyökeres. Whether Gyökeres only wanted to come for Champions League or not, he wanted Gyökeres. He was saying that because I think he knew if Manchester United didn't get Champions League, there was no way that United would be able to get Gyökeres. One, because he wants Champions League and he's been offered it by other clubs. And two, because United might not be able to afford it. So I think he was very clever in that way. He kind of covered both bases. If we would have gone and got Gyökeres, if we would have won the Europa League, happy days, Gyökeres is in. You know, everyone forgets the Amorim comment, and, you know, Amorim's probably saying Gyökeres always wanted to join us, we always wanted to reunite. You know, you're going right off into the sunset. United would have had a real crack at getting Gyökeres. I do believe that, with the extra money we had, with Champions League to offer. Without it, he's going to get offers from other clubs with offering Champions League football. He's going into his prime at 27. He wants to play in the best competitions. And I just don't think 15th place Manchester United is an attractive proposition to what other offers he's probably going to get. And I think Amorim knew that, so he covered both bases. So I don't think we're going to get Gyökeres. And I think the striker market's going to be pretty slim pickings if we miss out on Delap, to be honest. Because the only other options you really have floating about is Ekitike, which Liverpool and Chelsea and Newcastle have all been linked to, and apparently Frankfurt want 100 million for. That's not happening. João Pedro, apparently from Brighton, is on offer and wants to leave, but apparently Brighton want 100 million for him, and he's not exactly like an out-and-out striker. He's very versatile, number 10/striker, can play both positions, and we won't go for him. And Mateta from Crystal Palace might be next in line, which I won't be mad about. I think Mateta's a good player, but it's not anything that you're going to like start jumping up and down in massive excitement about, is it? So I think that's where United are at, really. And Sesko, but again, he's going to be too expensive. And again, it's not something that knocks my socks off. So I think that's where United are at with the striker situation. We might have to sell Hojlund to actually get some money in to afford a striker if Delap chooses Chelsea, because we can afford Delap because of his 30 million release clause. Other strikers, it starts getting more expensive. The Jimmy Dazzler says, check out Ben Jacobs' tweet 2 minutes ago. Are you having me on? Because I checked all of the tweets before I went live. Let me have a look. Ben Jacobs. I need to get Ben Jacobs on the channel. I need to get him on. That reminds me, I'm going to interview him. Okay. Oh, okay. So this has come out from Ben Jacobs, to be fair, 7 minutes ago. So thank you, chat, for making me aware. From Ben Jacobs, Al Hilal have made a final offer to Bruno Fernandes worth about $700,000 per week plus significant bonuses. They want an answer by Thursday. Manchester United remain intent not to sell and are yet to receive an approach. Just clicked on that article to see if there's any more in there. Also, Chris Wheeler has put it out there as well. Fernandes has been handed a deadline to make a decision on whether he is prepared to depart Manchester United in favour of a move to Al Hilal, with the Saudi Arabian big spenders giving him until Thursday before they want clarity on the possibility of being able to secure his services. So it's still out there, the Bruno Fernandes story. £700,000 per week. That is tax-free over in Saudi as well. So he will be earning ridiculous money if he chooses to do this. The final contract offer worth in the region of £700,000 per week in a bid to entice Fernandes away from Manchester United, while he would stand to pocket close to £65 million each season when the accommodation, flight, signing on fee and potential individual and match bonuses are factored in. 65 million tax-free per season in his pocket. It's generational wealth. And I know Ruben Amorim is these terms that the younger generation come up with now, and I think I'm moving past that, but to put it in the younger generation terms, Ruben Amorim is glazing Bruno Fernandes left, right and centre. He is talking up this player, putting it out there publicly how much he wants to convince Bruno to stay, how much he loves the player, how important he is. Vocally, Ruben Amorim's doing everything he can to keep Bruno. He's also very smart. And I reckon Ineos will be absolutely loving what Ruben Amorim is saying about Bruno Fernandes publicly. And you might think to yourself, well, Ineos, wherever they can get money, they're going to want to try and get money. Like, they're cutting staff left, right and centre. They're scrimping and saving on travel costs. We're doing a post-season tour in Kuala Lumpur and Hong Kong to get some money in. Like, any bit of money, they'd be all over. They floated the idea of Garnacho and Kobe going in January for pure profit. McTominay was sold last summer for pure profit. If Bruno Fernandes is going to get him 100 million, why would they want Ruben Amorim going out and saying how much he wants to keep him? Because they might think money when it comes to Bruno Fernandes. I think Ineos will be absolutely loving it. Few reasons why I think they'll be loving what Ruben Amorim has been saying about Bruno, which is we want him to stay, we want him to stay, we have to rebuild around Bruno, we need to do everything to convince Bruno to stay. Because if Bruno Fernandes does go to Al Hilal and he does choose to go to Saudi, it is publicly been put out there by Ruben Amorim that the club's position is we tried everything we could to keep him. We tried everything we could to get him to stay. But, you know, he's ended up going. It puts it out there that if Bruno goes, it's him that is making that decision to choose to go to Saudi while the club did everything they can to try and keep him. When, in actual matter of fact, if Bruno does go, which I don't actually think he will, but if he does, I think Ruben Amorim absolutely wanted to keep him. But I think the club will be thinking, highest earner, saving on wages, 350 grand a week, also pocketing 100 million off a 31-year-old. They'll be happy with that. They'll feel like they're cashing in on him at the most profitable time for the most amount of money you could possibly get for him. That we'll ever get for him. We'll never get offered this amount of money again for Bruno because of his age and because when he's at 31, I'm not saying he's over the hill because he's not. I still think he's got a lot of years left in him, but he's not going into his peak. He's kind of risen up to his peak and he's kind of at this point now and he's just going to slowly go on a downward trajectory eventually because that's what happens when footballers get into the mid-30s. But I'd want to keep him, like I've said, for his leadership, for the fact he's got experience, for his standards. But at the same time, I can understand why fans and other United fans, I speak to Ricky, we have chats on the forum group chat, there's people, Goldbridge has said he would cash in. I can understand a lot of you guys would want to cash in. I can understand why people would want to get the money for him because we will never get this money again. And you could invest it into players if we can afford to attract him. If we can attract him, because at the moment, what can we offer? We can offer a side that's losing Bruno Fernandes, which is probably, in a lot of people's eyes, one of the only world-class players we have, and is 15th currently in the Premier League. So it's all right having the money to spend on getting players in, but you've got to be able to attract them as well, which we managed to do with Cunha. We had to use the number 10 shirt though, I think, which has already been reported. I'm pretty sure that it's very likely Cunha's going to get the number 10. I think he demanded that in the negotiations with Manchester United, which is fair enough, to be honest with you. And I think he is at that point in his career, just turned 26. I think it was yesterday. Cunha, happy birthday to him. And he's going into the prime of his career, had a very good season. Coming into this United side, I can understand why he'd want the number 10, and I think he's got the personality to take it on. But getting the money from Bruno Fernandes is all well and good, but who are you actually going to be able to attract to spend that money on, to bring in, to ensure that Manchester United have a good enough team to compete next season? That's the big question. But I thought at first that the deadline for Bruno was Sunday. Now, apparently it's Thursday. But then again, I did see something on the radio, I think it was TalkSport yesterday, that Thursday was being reported as being a deadline for Bruno. I don't know how he makes his... Or obviously, you just phone your agent and you have them conversations. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, Bruno's still going to be on this post-season tour with Manchester United on Thursday because their game... They have another game, don't they? They have another game on Friday, is it? I can't even remember. Let me have a look now. Let me have a look. Yeah, they have another game in Hong Kong on Friday. So he'll still be on the post-season tour. So whether he decides that while he's there, I don't see it happening. But you can just ring up your agent and say, you know what, I'm going to decide to go. Today, while they were doing the open training session over in Kuala Lumpur, there was fans chanting, Bruno stay, Bruno stay. He's going to feel the love over there. But at the end of the day, it's massive, massive, massive money for him and his family going into the future, or staying at a Manchester United side that is not playing European football next season and is on a massive rebuild when you're 31. So there is going to be a decision that needs to be made. And I still do. I saw Goldbridge this morning saying, I think Bruno's made up his mind. I don't think he's going to go. I think he'll still be thinking about it. I really do. I don't think it's a decision you take lightly. lightly. I think Bruno Fernandes is in a position now where he absolutely loves the club. And I know that. He absolutely does love the club. He's had opportunities to leave this club before and he's stayed. He has tried everything he can behind the scenes to ensure that the club is going to start competing. He was promised a lot when he signed that contract about investing in new players, about investing into the future, about what the future looks like. Ineos did not deliver one bit this season. And I think he feels like he's done so much for this club, but he's not really getting back what he deserves, which is for a team to be built around him with players that are good enough to compete at the top level, because he wants to win the biggest things. And then when you look at a season ahead of you with no European football, it's another season where you're not going to be able to compete in Europe. Will Manchester United even be able to invest into the players that we need to get Europe again next season? And is Europa League even enough? Will we be able to get Champions League? Because that's what he'd want to be playing in. And on the other hand, he could just think, you know what, I've done everything I can. It's probably going to be a while until United are competing again. Do I just go and take 65 million a year? I think, and do you know what? Bruno could go and take that massive contract of 65 million a year. He could stay for 2 years and he could come back to Europe. I don't think Bruno Fernandes is going anywhere in terms of longevity and his fitness levels and being able to compete. I think in 2 years' time, Bruno will be 33. I think he'll still be able to play in Europe. So he could go to Saudi, go and get massive amounts of money and still come back to Europe to a Champions League club. I do think there'll be clubs interested in him. So he might think about it that way. I don't think his decision is over. If I had to put my money where I think he's going to end up, I think he will stay at United. I think Amrim's doing everything he can behind the scenes to try and convince him. But I don't think he's completely made his decision, hence why Al Hilal have put the deadline on Thursday. Because if Bruno had just turned around to him and said, I am not interested, I am staying at Manchester United, wait another season, I'm going to stay. They wouldn't still be, they might still be trying, but I don't think we'd still hear all this, Bruno's got a deadline on Thursday. I think it'd be kind of dead in the water. I do think Bruno's probably still thinking about it. And we've had Ruben Amorim come out and say, we want Bruno to stay. We're doing everything we can to make Bruno stay. But we've not actually heard from anybody, no journalist, no Romano, no Ornstein, no news outlet. Bruno Fernandes has decided to pledge his future at Manchester United, and he will be a Manchester United player next season. He's decided to stay. He's decided to turn down Saudi. We've not heard that report yet. So I do think this is ongoing, and I do think we'll have to wait until Thursday, maybe even later, to see what Bruno Fernandes' final decision is. We'll have to see. Even me, who is the biggest Bruno fan, and I truly believe if we do let him go, we are letting go of one of our best players, if not our best player. I can understand that football is a team game. Harry Kane left Spurs. Okay, this season they've been terrible. Last season they were all right. And they will survive. Coutinho's left Liverpool before. Mbappe left PSG. They're now in a final. Teams can survive without their best players. If Bruno Fernandes, you could get 120 million for him, and we invested it into a Gyökeres and an Mbeumo, I would be okay with that, as much as I love Bruno. And it hurts me to even say it, because I'm someone that's I love passion, and I love players that do everything they can for the badge and truly want the best for this club, and I know Bruno is one of them. But if you got in an Mbeumo and a Gyökeres with that money, that would make sense. It would make sense. Because you could have a situation where you've got Cunha and Mbeumo, a Gyökeres as your front three, and a midfield pivot of Mainu, an Ugarte, or another midfielder. You probably need another midfielder. I don't know if a Mainu and Ugarte pivot works. I don't think it does, to be honest. But you've still got midfielders there that can work, and you could go and invest into another defensive midfielder that is going to be able to work well in that pivot with a Mainu. So I do think United could go on without Bruno, is what I'm trying to say. but it'll be interesting to see what he does, to be honest with you. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Let me just see, because apparently Chris Wheeler put something out as well. Don't know if it's similar or the same. Sorry, guys, this is what happens midway through a show. You get breaking news. This is the transfer window. Let me see if Chris Wheeler said anything. Oh, okay, so he just said basically the same thing, coming from Chris Wheeler and Nathan Salt from the Daily Mail. Bruno Fernandes has been given 72 hours to decide if he wants to accept Al Hilal's take it or leave it offer. Let's see what Bruno decides to do. I think he will stay, but I don't think it's 100% certain as of now. Chris Wheeler, by the way, great journalist. Nathan Salt as well. I think he goes under the radar. And when Chris Wheeler mentioned Mbeumo yesterday, that's when I really started to sit up and take notice, because Chris Wheeler's broken a few stories that has gone under the radar. The Branthwaite one last season, last summer, a couple of others that don't spring to the top of my head straight away. But he's a great journalist. So when he spoke about the Mbeumo interest yesterday, I really did sit up and listen. And when he says that Bruno Fernandes has 72 hours, I believe him. So let's see what happens. We've got Protect, Empower. Welcome to the United Stand Members Club. Matt says, what made you support Manchester United? What a random super chat. But what made me support Manchester United was I was born into it. I was born into it from my dad. That's how it happened. That's all I can remember. I just grew up a United fan. There wasn't a moment in time when I thought, I want to be a United fan. Just always have been from the moment I came out of the womb. Sam Brock says, why would anyone prefer us with no EU and we're crap? I think you mean no Europe. Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard sell. Cunha wants to, though. Massive United fan. I think people forget sometimes how big the club truly still is and the name of it still is, especially, across the world, in South America. I mean, all over, to be honest. So we managed to convince Cunha. He's going to get an iconic number in the number 10. But we managed it with Cunha. We could maybe manage it with some other players as well. But your recruitment's got to be smart. There is players you can go and get that maybe aren't the biggest names and aren't, in the front of the papers, and maybe aren't on everybody's watch list. But if you've done the right scouting, you can recruit some gems. Like, look at Aidan Heaven. Aidan Heaven was £1 million. And I don't think he cared whether United win European football or not at his age. He's come in, he looks absolutely class. He looks like an instant first teamer. That's the sort of recruitment United are going to have to be clever in certain positions and try and replicate, because Ineos got a massive tick in my book with that Aidan Heaven recruitment, because that was a real good find that nobody expected him to be as good as he has been. So you need to be smart about it in certain positions as well. Of course, you need to go and get some experience and some players at like 90% success rate, but you also have to take a few risks with some other signings that maybe are lower end of the price range, but you really do believe can go and kick on and be a quality first team for United, because there are players out there, like, where was Mbeumo before Brentford signed him up? Where was, these players that come onto the scene, where was Cherki before he went to Lyon? Like, there is players out there that you can go and recruit and have got the ability, but just aren't yet on the worldwide stage. Joe Ferron says the Mbeumo cash would be better spent on a striker. We're still going to get a striker if we get Mbeumo, by the way. There's no way United come out of this window without a striker. Mirror FTW says if we are only getting 2 or 3 players this summer, better get Prem players just to be safe. N says this Liam Delap situation is a testament to how risky the owner / Jason Wilcox are acting when we are already hitting rock bottom, can't afford flops. I don't think we've got many other options to pivot to be honest with you, N, because I think Gyökeres doesn't want to join us. I don't think Osimhen wants to join us, and I think he's too expensive. And, Delap's 30 mil, it's cheap. I think that's why we're going for it, and I hope it works. I really hope he does well. Protect, Empower, welcome to the United Stand Members Club. It's still not nailed on we are going to get Delap, by the way. JK Dowd all says, Colette Roach has been our COO since 2018. She might become Newcastle's next CEO. Are the executives starting to jump ship? I mean, that's a whole different segment of a show that I don't have time for today. But I think it's, it's a good question. Alex Marman says, I thought you were going to quote Angry Ginge, lol. Now, I'll leave Angry Ginge to his own catchphrases. He's definitely doing well enough without my help on that one. But anyway, let me just finish up this Højlund thing, because I did wrote a couple of things down. Your poll on whether you would sell, loan or keep him. I'm just going to see what the votes are on that now. I've just voted sell on there. It's got almost 8,000 votes already. Why does it... Can someone tell me what the result of the poll is, if that's possible? Sell 61% and the loan is 22%. And how much is the keep? 17%. Wow. So majority of you would want to sell him. That is on the same boat as me. And I saw a few people saying, oh, you know, we're probably going to have to do a loan because of how much we'd need to get for him, because of how much we paid for him. And honestly, I think when you look at Højlund, I think United need to really step up in terms of their negotiations and prove that this new recruitment team they've got and the new team they've put together is worth the hype they were getting. Rasmus Højlund is 22, I'm pretty sure. He's attracting interest from a lot of clubs in Serie A. Napoli were named to a club to be interested. Juventus were. Inter Milan absolutely are. That's being reported now. Inzaghi's a big fan. Like, he's got interest from Serie A. Milk that. And his wages aren't high. Like, they can afford his wages. You should be pushing for a sale on this. Like, a loan option to buy is... They're gonna obviously go for that first and foremost, because they want to try before you buy with Rasmus, because he's had a pretty terrible year. I can understand why they would want that, and they know that United are pushovers, and they know that United are desperate. Don't be desperate. Push for a sale. If you want him, you can pay for him. That is what I would be doing, and don't let other clubs kind of prey on United's weaknesses and go and push for a sale. There's interest there. His wages are low. We should be looking. And you know what? If no club actually does buy it at a sale, you can explore a loan. But there's no harm in, you know, being a bench player next season. If he gets a few cameos, might score a few goals, clubs will come back around and try and buy him. Let's see what happens. But United should be pushing for a sale, I think, when there's that many clubs interested in him. However, let's move on. Spoke about Højlund. We got that Bruno Fernandes news. I'm going to race through the other bits that we have to bring in. This is the transfer window, by the way, guys. Shows are going to be manic. They're going to be hectic, but don't we just love it? I love it when it's going in United's favour. Little update on Mbeumo, who I was talking about would be absolutely unreal for us. Manchester United and Newcastle both want Mbeumo this summer. Apparently Newcastle very interested in Mbeumo, and that's coming from The Telegraph. I mean, their director of football has just left, Paul Mitchell, after a very short time at Newcastle. He obviously replaced Dan Ashworth, who then... The whole Dan Ashworth saga of the sacking and him leaving early as well. It's quite ironic, isn't it, that both Paul Mitchell and Dan Ashworth have left their respective roles within a very short amount of time. Imagine if they both kind of swapped and Ashworth went back to Newcastle and Mitchell went to United. I don't think that'll happen, but will that affect their summer transfer plans? Mbeumo would absolutely rip it up for Newcastle, but I would dread to see it. I would dread to see it because, again, it's one of our rivals that's competing for a Champions League spot with us next season. Strengthen him. Like, them having Gordon on one wing and Mbeumo on the other with Isak up front is lethal. It's one of the best front threes in the Premier League, without a doubt. It's absolutely lethal. And them also having Barnes as like a rotational player. Even Jacob Murphy's done really well this season for them. I can understand why they want Mbeumo, though, as that level up. But that would be insane. And it's not even just talking about the fact that I want Mbeumo just so another club doesn't get him, but that's one of the reasons I want him, because I think he'd be lethal at another top club who would be looking at him, and I can understand why they would be. But I also want him because of how much he takes United up another level. Like, he's a perfect balance to Cunha. Cunha, a great ball carrier, versatile. Great left-sided forward that's going to be able to carry the ball. He's got great technical ability. And Mbeumo is that pace, that power, that work ethic. He's got the second most amount of ground covered in the whole Premier League to Bruno Guimaraes this season. He scored 20 Premier League goals. And it's not a one-off season as well. He's had high goal contributions in the last 2 seasons before that. He's fantastic. So United, if they've got any way of getting him for 50 million as well, it's a bargain price. But I'm just worried with Mbeumo is we really like him and we want him, but what's going to happen is what happened with Elise last year. We wanted Elise, we were desperate for Elise, but we had to wait until we did sales. We had to wait until we had the Sancho situation resolved. We had to wait for sales before we could go and buy players. And I think we're in a situation, which Romano said yesterday, is, and I think it was also reported by Rich Fay as well, when Garnacho goes, we might spend that money on getting Mbeumo. You know, when Rashford and Sancho go, we'll probably spend that money on going getting Mbeumo. But by the time that happens, Mbeumo might be wearing a Newcastle shirt or wearing another club shirt, because a player of that amount of quality is going to attract top clubs, and he's probably not going to want to wait for United. It's not as if it's like Real Madrid that's like, Mbeumo, Bryan Mbeumo, wait for us. Like, imagine if Madrid was saying that, he'd probably think, hang on a second, I might wait and see what they've got to offer me. But it's 15th place Manchester United. We still can attract players, but it's a much bigger ask, especially when Newcastle have got a prime position ready for him and have got Champions League football. So Elise ended up not waiting around, going to Bayern Munich. They were able to offer him massive wages as well and you know, Champions League football. So other clubs might be able to do that, and that's why I don't think Mbeumo is very likely, because I think another club will get there first, to be honest with you, which is frustrating because I think he'd absolutely thrive on that right-sided 10 spot, alternating with Ahmad through right wing-back, but that's where we're at. And also on Mbeumo blow, because I do think it's going to be unlikely that we're able to pull this off, there's also a Ryan Cherki blow as well. A lot of people say we need another 10, myself included. Cherki and Mbeumo were both put forward and apparently both liked by United. Mbeumo had much stronger links to United than Cherki has. Cherki's sort of like a fan theory, I think, because of how low his release clause was, but then it was revealed by Romano that his release clause actually isn't that low, because in France they do it differently and you still have to pay more. It's still going to be a very good fee for a player that's 21 and has got massive amounts of technical ability. And Ryan Cherki's, you know, we saw what he was like against United for Lyon. He was fantastic. He's a bargain, and I'd happily have him at United. I think a lot of United fans would as well. But as much as it looks like Mbeumo might be on his way to Newcastle because they can get there first over United, Romano has said about Ryan Cherki, who could be an alternative option for United. Manchester City are interested in Ryan Cherki and informed on his exit cost details. He's on the shortlist, with Morgan Gibbs-White also still there. Two names highly rated at Manchester City. Cherki is one more idea, as Telegraph Football reports. And that's from Romano. Again, would be gutted. If I saw Mbeumo go to Newcastle and Cherki go to City, I'd be absolutely gutted. But there's nothing we can do, because we've put ourselves in this situation by being so rubbish. Because we've got to sell before we can buy, because we couldn't win the Europa League and get Champions League football and get that money, so we're skint. And also, we're not as attractive as City, and we're not as attractive as Newcastle right now. On paper, the name and the fan base of Manchester United might be able to outweigh that to certain players, but they'll be able to offer more next season than what United can offer right now. So it's, yeah, we have Cunha. Someone in the chat says, but we have Cunha. And don't get me wrong, I'm buzzing about Cunha. And do not let that, you kind of, you know, shade that how I feel about the Cunha deal. I'm buzzing we've got Cunha over the line. Versatile forward that I think he's going to do really well at United, and I think he's the right character. He's got the right mentality. He is a fighter. He's a very, very good football player. I'm very, very happy that we got Cunha done early. But for a United side that has been as terrible as it has been this season and has been as bad as we've been in front of goal, we need to be getting more in than just Cunha if we're looking to compete. I tell you that. Like, we have scored 44 goals all season. We need better in our front line, and just Cunha alone's not going to cut it. To put it into perspective, by the way, Mbeumo's got 20 goals and 7 assists for Brentford this season. His goal and attack tally is 62% of our total goals. We need more quality in our front line. So as much as I love Cunha coming to United, we need more. A few people talking about Eze in the chat. Eze is a name I brought up at the start of this season, actually. If anyone, do you know what? It makes me laugh because so many people taunt me for Onana, right? But I brought up Eze at the start of this season and said I'd love to go and get Eze. Maybe even the end of last season. And so many people in the chat was like, no, we don't need Eze. We've got Garnacho. We know to Eze. He's injury prone. He's this, he's that. He's gone and ripped it up for Crystal Palace again this season. Was fantastic in their final. And I don't see how United go and get Eze when Crystal Palace are playing in the Europa League. They're building something. If they can keep hold of their manager in Glasner as well, I just don't see how we'll do it. Palace will demand a lot of money for him. They're in the Europa League. I just don't see how we get Eze. I think there's more chance of us getting an Mbeumo than there is a chance of us getting Eze. And to be honest, as much as I think Eze is an absolute baller and I rate him, I'd rather have Mbeumo for what United need. We've got Cunha, who is a very, very, very similar profile to what Eze would be for us. I'd much rather have a more dynamic, winger-esque number 10 in Mbeumo who can make them bursting runs in behind. That's what I'd prefer anyway. But get your comments in what you would want. Next little bit of news that I need to get through with you guys. Let me go back onto my news. So I've done Mbeumo, I've done the Cherki blow. Next up, Delap. So also, just to note, De Ligt and Xerxes are back on grass training in the postseason tour right now in Kuala Lumpur. They are on grass in the open training session. So that's positive to see. As we know, Xerxes rushed himself back for the final, wasn't properly fit, and De Ligt's not been fit for a while. So their rehab's going well in the pre-season, and hopefully they can stay fit and be available on the pre-season tour as well and have a nice recharge summer and be back for next season for United. Two players who I think in a really poor season for United have actually stood up and been decent. So it's good to see them on grass again. Okay, Delap. So this was from Ben Jacobs. Chelsea are now optimistic of signing Liam Delap now that Manchester United have no European football. Right. I rate Ben Jacobs very highly, and he just put that out about Al Hilal and Bruno Fernandes, very well connected to the Saudi Pro League, and Chris Wheeler also put that out about Bruno. Ben Jacobs is usually pretty much on the money, and he has said that Chelsea are now optimistic of signing Liam Delap now that United have no European football. That worries me. It also worries me the fact that, you know, Chelsea are in the Conference League final tomorrow against Real Betis. Maybe there's not much decision going on from Delap as of now because Chelsea want to wait until after the Conference League final so there's no distractions. I know from our side and from Goldbridge's source, we're very, very confident that Delap was going to go to United, and United were very, very confident that they'd beat Chelsea to the sign of Delap. But Delap and his camp might well have been saying to, you know, United side, yeah, we want to join you regardless of European football. Like, we really like the project. We just want to listen to other offers. And then, because at the time when we reported this, we didn't even know if Chelsea were going to have Champions League football. They might have missed out on that last day of the season. And then he might have sat there. Like, you know, humans change their mind. Sometimes, you know, I'm in the studio and I'm thinking, do you know what? I would love to have fajitas for tea tonight. I would love fajitas. You know what? I'm going to text whoever. I'm going to say, yes, do you want fajitas tonight? Yeah, we'll have fajitas. And then it gets to around 4 or 5 o'clock and I'm like, do you know what? I actually really fancy spag bol. Yeah. Now you've mentioned it, I would love a spaghetti bolognese and garlic bread. And, you know, people change their minds. Liam Delap might well have been like, I want to move back up north. United in Europa League final. They might win it. They might get champion. I might be playing Champions League football. You know, Chelsea might not even get Champions League football. And I've also got at Chelsea. I've got to compete with Nicholas Jackson. And, you know, a lot of you might think, you know, Nicholas Jackson isn't exactly, you know, top tier, but I actually think Nicholas Jackson is pretty good. I think he's underrated. I don't think he's a be-all and end-all for Chelsea. I do believe they need another striker. I don't think he is of the elite calibre, but it's still better competition than what Delap would have at United. Like, Delap at United would walk straight into the team. Like, he starts up front for United. Whereas at Chelsea, I still think he starts for Chelsea, but Nicholas Jackson, does give a bit of extra competition. So he's probably thinking, I'm starting at United straight away. To be part of a team that brings United back is obviously an attraction. I get to move back up north, which is where he knows. And he's probably going to be on decent wages, and, they might have Champions League football. But then Chelsea put another pitch together and they're like, well, we're in the Champions League now, definitely. So we can offer you that. This is our plan for you. You're going to be starting games for us. Enzo Maresca really rates you. You're going to have this financial package, and they might have sold him the dream. They might have done, and he might have thought, do you know what? As much as I did want to move back up north, as much as United, I did want to go there. You know what, Chelsea, I'm going to be playing in the Champions League here, and they've got a plan for me. They might have put together a really good proposal, so he might change his mind, and that is what Ben Jacobs has put out there. That's what a few other sources are reporting. And Ornstein or Romano haven't put it out yet, so it's not like nailed on. But I was very confident United are getting Delap, and my confidence is starting to slip. I think we've got to know more in the next week. I mean, how long is it going to really take Delap to make a decision? Imagine if he actually imagine if we're all here going, it's either going to be Chelsea or United, and then out of left field, Wednesday or Thursday next week, Ornstein bomb drops, Delap's chosen to be the star of David Moyes' Everton project. Might happen. Apparently they're putting together a big financial package, but on a serious level, I do think it'll be Chelsea or United, and I'm not as confident as I once was. And I think a lot of United fans who were like, I'm not sure on Delap. I don't think Delap's good enough. We want a Gyökeres or an Osimhen. We need better. We need more experience. We want better than Delap. I was there with you. I absolutely wanted a Gyökeres or an Osimhen. That is what I still want. It's not going to happen. It's what I still want. But sometimes beggars can't be choosers, and we might be in a situation where the next best thing in Delap actually rejects us for Chelsea. And then we're sat there thinking, where do we go next? Where do we go next? It's going to be interesting to see what he does. One thing I'll say is, quickly, and I do need to end the show because I've been going for 53 minutes. Again, just can't stop me scoring. Is we'll probably end up going for Mateta or something like that. It's not the end of the world, but it's just you can't hide away from the fact it's going to be a third or fourth choice option. Really, it is, isn't it? Because the ideal would have been Gyökeres or Osimhen. Then it's going to go to Delap, and then it's going to go to like Mateta or whoever's next. And Mateta absolutely does better in this team than Hojlund does. It's absolutely an improvement, but you still can't hide away from the fact it is a third or fourth choice for Manchester United, so it is kind of a failure. It would be a failure in the position that every United fan, or even non-United fan, know is United's most important position to recruit this summer, and have known it for a year. Like, we've known it for a long time now, that this is the most important position that United can go for in the summer. As soon as Amrin walked in, it was number one priority. And we might be looking at a third or fourth choice in that area. And I just don't think that's acceptable from Manchester United, whether you're in the Champions League or not. But let's see what happens. We might well go and get Delap as what we've thought in previous weeks. But like I said, people can change their minds. If we did get Delap and Højlund went, is Delap and Xerxes a good amount of depth to have in that position? I really do think Xerxes can kick on next season. I think it is if you have Mbeumo and Cunha. If you have Mbeumo and Cunha, who are both going to provide a lot of goals and I think would link up with Xerxes like a dream, I think it's enough. But if you fail to get that extra number 10, you need a better striker, I think, alongside them two. Goalkeeper is most important, says Keno. Savage says Xerxes will never be a 9. But if you have Mbeumo and Cunha making runs off him, I think that does work. Like, again, it's not It's not maybe what everyone hoped for, but I do think it is still massive improvement. Arif Chowdhury says, I don't understand how we can let go of 5 attackers and not have their replacements. 2 attacking signings this summer is not enough. We need attackers. Arif, I'm with you. Anthony's going to go, Rashford's going to go, Sancho's going to go, Garnacho's probably going to go, Hojlund might even go. Like, we need to invest. So as much as Mbeumo at the moment's looking unlikely, if we get our act together and get these sales on, you could be in a position where you do have an Mbeumo and a Cunha and a new striker starting next season, and it just levels us up massively, more than you can believe. I think that front line takes us, it takes us competing at least for top 6. I genuinely do believe that. Actually, you probably need a keeper and a midfielder as well, but you definitely move up quite a few places in the table. The Duke says, why not Cherki? He's younger and skill to apply is incredible. And A. Gomez, free as rotational 10 and 6 in Eriksen's silent is a brilliant replacement. City are going for Cherki, I think, and I don't think we'll go for him. We've not really been strongly linked to him as much as a lot of United fans would want. As good as he's been, and as good as highly as we rate him here. We've just not been linked to him as strongly as other players that we've spoken about on the show. But look, everyone, I'm going to wrap up there. Smash a like on the video if you've not already. Loads of you watching on this afternoon show. Loads of transfer stories to follow and get our teeth into. We've also got one of the biggest games of the season tomorrow over in Kuala Lumpur. Make sure you tune into that. We will be covering it here on the United Stand, and any other news that comes out, we'll be right here to bring you the updates. Thank you everyone for watching. Have an amazing week, and I will see you on the next one.